Hello, everyone. This is Truby Chiavello, editor of Primo Magazine, and I'm coming to you today. This is a rebroadcast of a previous video I did regarding Pope Leo XIV and his ethnic background. Back on May 8th, this year, 2025, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost was named the new Pope. And when that occurred, everybody was searching his ethnic background to get an indication of his identity. We found out on his mother's side of the family, they came from New Orleans. She was Spanish, and she had roots from Haiti and Africa, African American. And then we looked at his father's side, and it was reported that he was Franco-Italian. His father's name was Louis Marius Prevost, and Pope Leo was born Robert Francis Prevost on September 14th, 1955. But who was his grandparents? That was the question. His grandfather's name was John R. Prevost, and his grandmother went by the name of Suzanne Prevost. And the Italian press came out strong, and they said that Pope Leo's grandfather came from Piedmont, Italy, and his name was Giovanni Pietro Felice Provosto. He was from Turin, Italy, a small village right outside there. Well, when genealogists here in the United States checked out those records, they found out that Provosto was born in 1877 and died a year later. So that could not have been Pope Leo's grandfather. So they had to make a more in-depth search. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about is the search. And it's a very interesting story because if this occurred before the year 2000, maybe in the 1990s, it would have taken them a very long time. It would have taken them months to find this information. But because where we're at now, with regards to so much information available online, so many public records that are in the public domain, and because they've had so much experience in genealogy, they were able to take just a few days, really, maybe a week, to figure out the true identity of Pope Leo's grandfather. And what they found was that he came from Sicily. And his real name was Salvatore Giovanni Gaetano Rigatano. And how they came up with that information. Well, when they were searching for information on Pope Leo's grandparents, John R. Prevost and his wife Suzanne, they couldn't find any information about them. They couldn't find a marriage certificate. They couldn't find information about them on Ellis Island records, and they couldn't find any census records. Now, they knew that Pope Leo's grandmother, her maiden name, the maiden name that she claimed, was Suzanne Fabre. She spelled her last name Fabre, either pronounced Fabre or Fabre, French. But they couldn't find any information about her. No Ellis Island records, nothing to indicate her existence. So they had to really delve deeply into their background. Now, Pope Leo, he had his father, Louis, had an older brother named John. And Pope Leo's father was born on July 28th, 1920. And his older brother, John, was born July 23rd, 1917. So I'm just going to put that out there for you so you have that as some background information. When the genealogists were looking for any information to indicate, where Pope Leo's grandparents came from, one of them was a historian, and he had access to old newspapers. And he came across an old advertisement for the Rigatano Prevost School of Language. And so they decided to delve into Mr. Rigatano's background, thinking they could find some information about John Prevost. This is back in 1930. And what they found was that Mr. Rigatano, he came from Sicily, and and he married a woman here named Daisy Hughes. He came from Sicily in 1903, settled for a time in New York where he taught language, and then he moved out to Quincy, Illinois, where his two older sisters were, and that's where he married Daisy Hughes in 1914. 3 years later, based upon what they could find out about Mr. Rigatano, the genealogist came across a newspaper that was dated in 1917, and there it showed that Rigatano was involved in a scandal. He was accused by his wife Daisy of committing adultery, and he was arrested for that crime. It was a crime back then. And the woman whom he was having an affair with was Suzanne Fontaine. She had arrived in Quincy, Illinois, and when Daisy Hughes found out about that, she reported her and him to the police, and they were arrested. They posted bond. The trial was going to take place later, and Suzanne Fontaine took off. She left Illinois. The genealogists were able to find out that she settled for a bit in Detroit. We're talking about maybe a month. Went to Canada. A few months later, she ends up in New York. Now, this is in July of 1917, right about when Pope Leo's uncle, his father's older brother, he had only one sibling, was born. And he was born in Lackawanna, New York. He was born on July 23rd, 1917, in Our Lady of Victory Infant Home. This was a hospital for unwed mothers. And they looked at the birth certificate. On the birth certificate, it listed John R. Prevost as the father, and it listed Suzanne Fabre as the mother, and she crossed out her last name and didn't put any new name there. So the genealogist came to the conclusion that Fabre was not her true identity, that her true identity was Fontaine. That's Suzanne Fontaine, and so therefore Prevost, his true identity was Rigatano, was Salvatore Giovanni Gaetano Rigatano, and their child was born out of wedlock at the time. Now, it turned out that they had Pope Leo's father 3 years later. I think he was born in Illinois. And when they traced back information on Suzanne Fontaine, there was more of a paper trail. They could check out her Ellis Island records. They found out that she was born February 2nd, 1884, in Le Havre, France. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, but this is in Normandy. And so they checked out her parents, and guess what? Her mother's maiden name was Prevost. Just too much of a coincidence. So they came to the conclusion that they adopted that name, maybe try to have some sort of family connection there. And so they went under that as an alias for many, many years. Rigatano's wife, Daisy Hughes, she never granted him a divorce, and she died in 1939. So Mr. Rigatano and Miss Fontaine together, they lived under the name of Prevost, and I'm assuming common law marriage. I don't know if he ever got an annulment or the marriages are blessed in the church. I don't think it was ever officially licensed. They just kind of went by their name, I'm assuming. Again, maybe some records might come up to show that not to be the case. But, they were married for many, many years, and they raised two wonderful kids. He died in 1960, and she died in 1979. What verified this for the genealogist was back around 1940. This is right after the Germans invaded France in World War II, the beginning of World War II. The Justice Department wanted everyone who was a French resident to go down to the local police station and sign a form and fill out a form regarding where they lived and their identity, and their husband also had to fill out a form. So they were able to obtain copies of the records, and it shows that Suzanne Fabre, when she went down to the police station, she wrote down her true name, which was Suzanne Fontaine. And I think she put down, AKA Fabre or something like that. And she listed her address. And of course, this was the address where Pope Leo's father was raised in the house there in Chicago, and Mr. Rigatano listed his name, and he listed his name as her husband, Salvatore Giovanni Gaetano Rigatano, and then he added his mother's maiden name, which was Aliato, so giving a full impression of where he came from. He also listed where he was born, which was in Milazzo, Sicily, and he was born there 1876, June 24th, and this is in the Messina province. So that was what verified for them that this must have been their true identity. Reports are, and I haven't seen a copy of it. I saw a copy of all these other records that are mentioned here: the birth certificate of Pope Leo's uncle, the form that I just talked to you about, and some other information that the genealogists were able to share with the public. But reports are that John Prevost, Pope Leo's uncle, back around 1983, filed for a Social Security card because he didn't have one. And I guess he didn't have one because he was born 15 years, 16 years, whatever it was, before the Social Security Act even was implemented. So he must have tried to obtain a Social Security card for retirement purposes, I guess. And apparently, what I'm told is that he listed his father's true identity and his mother's true identity. What's strange, though, however, is when Pope Leo's father died in the 1990s, he died, I think, of colon cancer. The death certificate did not include his father's accurate identity. They listed him still as John Prevost, John R. Prevost. They listed his mother's maiden name is Suzanne Fabre. So leave that for what it is. It's not unusual for the families to try to hide the scandals and not talk about it. And perhaps Pope Leo and his brothers didn't know the full story. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's some people that speculate that might have been the case. They might not have done the kind of search that these professional genealogists do, of course. And my experience has been that most people, including myself, really don't know the full story of their ancestors. You know, why they came here, what they did when they were here. The narrative is, of course, that, you know, they came for a better life, better opportunity. And I think that's partially true, but there might be other reasons why they came. And when they came to the United States, what was it like? It might not have been as pure as some people say it is. In Primo, we have a Reader's Corner section where Primo readers can submit articles about their ancestors and why they came from Italy. And we try to, impress upon them, don't give us the narrative. Give us the real story, because it's even more fascinating than what the narrative will be. And it's quite interesting how they came here, why they came here, how they lived, and what happened. It's not as pristine as we would like it to be, but it's a story of survival. It's a story of overcoming. It's a story of redemption. That's the case of Pope Leo's grandparents. Wonderful people, considering what they had to deal with. They probably weren't ready for this. What happened with themselves, their marriage, the births of their children. But they lived together. They loved each other, no doubt, and they raised two fine kids. Pope Leo's uncle was a professor of language, and his father was a school administrator, very respectable. And look how Pope Leo turned out. So that's the story of the United States, story of immigration, just a story of how our families evolved. And it's a fascinating story when you look at the reality of it. Pope Leo inherited from his grandfather, from his Sicilian grandfather, a love of language. You can say, what do you want to say about his grandfather? He was a master of language. He taught French, Italian, and Spanish. And as it turns out, Pope Leo is fluent in those languages, but also Portuguese, Latin, and he can speak and write some German. So he's definitely inherited that gene of language from his grandfather. So there it is. There's the story of Pope Leo and his family background. I look forward to learning more about his life as a priest, his experience in the order of Saint Augustine of Hippo, and what comes in the future regarding his papacy. It's a fascinating story for all of us. I'm hopeful that he'll visit the United States, visit his home city, Chicago, and we all Italian Americans must reach out to him and really make a connection to him, because this is an Italian American story, and Pope Leo represents that. So this is Tribute Chiavello with Primo Magazine. If you like this video, please like it and please subscribe. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future, in the weeks and months and years ahead. All things Italian, Italian American, and even beyond that a little bit. So thank you very much. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.